We are YOM. We were founded to solve the two hardest challenges to cloud gaming, cost and speed. Our solution was to build a decentralized GPU network focused on eliminating latency and drastically reducing costs. This is what we've done. YOM has built the first game-focused decentralized network that allows AAA games to be playable on any screen through your web browser. We now have the technology on which to build the 3D internet, with immersive e-commerce, 3D social media, virtual events, and so much more beyond cloud gaming. Come find out more at www.yom.oo. We are YOM, the game-focused decentralized network empowering the world's creative future.
We're showing now a demo game that's running on top of the YOM Alpha network. So it's a single node that's running at one of our developers' home address. So the game we're going to play is Martians vs. Roughnecks. It's a game that's basically deployed on the YOM network with an integration to Telegram. So I simply have to press on the play button here. And then you see the leaderboard. I can press play, it starts the game. And it can be in the horizontal, can be in portrait mode. And as you can see, there's almost no latency at all. So I can easily just kill all of these creatures around me. Right, so this can also be played in horizontal mode, because that's a little bit easier in terms of the controls. But this is all, of course, on the studios to optimize for. So I'm just going to die. So you see what happens. Right, game over, survived the 0 waves, and I get back to the leaderboard screen where I'm prompted to play again. So that's it, and all of the scores are also pushed to the Telegram channel. So that basically means infinite amount of users to be able to join any Unreal Engine game.
YOM.
That was pretty good. Now I realized I can't go over and check to make sure that we're streaming on Telegram.
Well, we checked, Jeff, but there was no sound.
Oh, really? That entire time?
The entire time there was no sound.
Get the heck out of here!
Yep.
All right.
Well, really nice visuals. So
yeah, someone should have messaged me. Oh, you did message me. All right. Welcome, I didn't realize Jorrit was going to be here too, so we'll get a happy.
He was like, yeah, I'm here. So can I join? It's like, yeah, sure. Go ahead, join.
So usually what we do is we vamp for a little bit to try to get people time to come and find the stream. But that video now is about 2 minutes long, so hopefully, even though without the audio, people came in and stuck around. So we'll see soon how many people are following us. But welcome to it, Dirk. Don't be nervous.
I'm not nervous.
Yes. I think it's timed well. Oh, I've got the roadmap too behind me, so we can kind of go. Oh, look, we're right here, getting ready to do the orchestrator in the public DePIN launch. But it's good, well timed, I think, because we've got a lot of progress on the nodes and a lot of interest in the nodes. Last couple of weeks, we've had a real spike in, hey, you guys got nodes you're selling, right? How do we get in there? So I thought what we do was talk about, like, first of all, your background real quick, Dirk, from a high level, like. What got you started? How did you find YOM? How did we find you? Maybe it's a better way to put that.
It's actually quite a funny story. Like a little bit of background, I'm ex-Army. And then after that, I went into supply chain management. And basically, I was a bit tired of my job because everything was so automated. So I basically worked myself out, and my job consisted of monitoring things. And I was like, I don't want to monitor things. I want to do stuff. So it kind of annoyed me. And then I'm also good friends with Robert, the previous speaker.
Right.
And like, I'm also in crypto. And he's like, yeah, like there's this guy I'm going to have a beer with. You want to join? And that guy that I was going to have a beer with is Jorrit.
It's a good beer.
And like we had a chat. And basically he was explaining what YOM was doing. And I was like, no way. I don't believe it. Like this cannot be real. And he showed me a video of the YOM shop with all the bots in it. And I was like, okay, this is amazing. So how does it work? And then he started going all technical on me, and I didn't understand anything. But I was like, I kind of want to know this. So I basically contemplated quitting my job right there. And basically had some more chats. And then Jorrit once said to me, like, we kind of need a developer. And I was like, I cannot do any coding. I don't know anything about this, but I have a gaming PC and I would like to learn it. So like, if I can move my PC here and you teach me this, I will. And basically that's how I came at YOM.
And it's amazing, like how productive you've been, considering that, you know, coding wasn't where you started, right? But holy cow! And I know that we use Claude and other things to help you out, but is it your Claude and just your own tenacity that's got you to where you are?
So, like, I was a bit like, I can go only full send. Like, I don't have like a low mode. I can only go 100%. So the first thing I did is like, okay, I don't know anything. So I basically forced myself through like 500 hours of material in a week.
Which is doesn't surprise anybody who knows you, but okay, go ahead.
So then I got the basics, and then like I was like, okay, give me an assignment and I will figure it out. Just give me something. And basically that's how it started. Started with the load balancer on AWS. And I have to say, like, my tenacity maybe, but it's also like I want to thank Rohan, especially Rohan, because he's such a great teacher. He explained so much to me and made it very easy to follow. So like a Rohan, like a real asset, real gem. And the other bit is like, to my surprise, like supply chain management and coding actually work really well together, because basically it's optimizing processes. And with coding, you're also optimizing processes. So the overlap is really great. And of course, Jorrit helped me a ton. So
nice.
That's how I got started with this.
Wasn't the first project actually on Linux already, like with Bash and?
Yes, actually, yes, actually. So like, yeah, the Linux bit.
So and that's important, right? Because people who don't know yet, right? The node that we're be shipping out is a modified version of Linux.
Yes.
And it's probably worth mentioning, or one of the two of you or both of you explain why it is that our node is a Linux-based node.
So there's not one reason, there are several, like especially for considerations. Linux allows you to do way more stuff than Windows, especially with command lines. And of course, all the great cloud streaming networks also use Ubuntu Linux. So it's like easy if you already have something working on the AWS and then move from AWS to the node, and you don't need licenses, which is also very important, because otherwise every node should have a Windows license.
Right.
So,
and then I know that's also, isn't Windows bloated to the idea that you couldn't, to do a container inside of a Windows, to do what we're doing inside of a container inside of Windows just means further latency issues and slowdown.
Windows is quite hefty on like things you can and cannot do. I think that's also how Linux in itself is born. It's like people were tired that Windows was restricting them. And they're like, nah, not for me. I'm going to make my own system. And I think that's like the origin of Linux. And I truly like that mindset. I love that way of thinking. Oh, if it doesn't work, then just make it better. Just make our own.
I have to think that all of the Netherlands would be embracing Linux if they could, just the way you guys are so efficient.
Well, then you come back to Windows again, right? For daily operations, Windows is better, unless you can work the command line.
Okay, all right. So it was interesting on the trip to Singapore, right? Dirk was my lifeline, because I was bringing a node out into public for the very first time, and there were a couple of nights where I'm in the hotel room making sure that everything runs well. Now, for me to be in the actually no, because it was early morning for me. You were up past midnight, like 2 a.m. trying to make sure that I would be set for the the show, which is, I thought, I'll publicly thank you for that.
That's like, I love to do it. I like these things. Like
it was more incredible than you think, actually, because he actually stayed the entire night. So he brought all of his stuff to the office to sleep over, and to ensure that Jeff was fully supplied with all of the knowledge and all of the support to get you started on the demo.
It went off perfectly. I've never used Linux before. I never used Ubuntu, so I was completely at a loss. But eventually, I memorized it. Right? What was the one I had to memorize? I had to. I screwing up all the time. I don't remember. I've erased my cache.
Yeah, the erase your cache. Like every time the same. Like restart the router.
Right. It was a lot. All right, so let's talk more again about the node, because I think this is very interesting to people. So again, it'll be a small device. It'll be about something like this size. People will be booting off of it. And you were telling me that not every computer's dual boot is the same. So there will be some steps for the not installation, because it doesn't get installed, but for.
I didn't. Sorry, what did you say? Like I missed
the dual boot, right? Now my gaming laptop's dual boot system was different, you said, from others, and each will have their own individual. So when we ship these nodes, we'll have instructions on how to set up your dual boot, so that you recognize. Some of them don't have to, right? Some of them just plug right in and it knows automatically.
It's not necessarily a dual boot. That's something different. But like we have MBR, and that's a legacy system. So mainly for older computers, and you have the newer versions that you run UEFI. Slight difference only for reading it, but in theory, like the node will have two partitions on it. So one for legacy and one for UEFI. So basically it's compatible for every computer. We also will have an instruction manual to clarify this, because you need to change your boot order to boot from the SSD.
Right.
Okay. That's going to be a very simple, and hopefully depending on your BIOS, because every BIOS is different.
Yes.
A simple one-time operation, but it could be the case that you have to do it multiple times, because we cannot alter the BIOS, because that's really developed by the chip manufacturer.
Right. Yeah. I think mine's an older computer too, so it's going to have probably the older version, the harder. And when I say harder, it really isn't that hard. It's just something that I have to know to do.
So like there's also like another consideration, like we could do it from the BIOS, only like that would give us root access to the computer, and we also don't want people to feel like we have access to all their personal files, everything they can do. So we also chose, okay, we're going to do this route because we very value privacy, and like we don't want to watch.
That's right. That was a big thing too. When we talk to folks, they try to compare us to other systems and all. These guys over here are just having you install software on their computers, and then you become a node. And we took the opposite approach for several reasons, right? First, we didn't want people to have to partition 2 terabytes worth of storage on their hard drive. Secondly, we didn't want people to have access to the game data, so it's more secure for the game developers to be on our node than it would be to be inside of a container on Windows. And what am I leaving off? There are other reasons.
So like if we could have like a program on your computer that can control your computer, that means that we could get everything from your computer.
Right.
So and all our operations like mainly are also inside of root. So inside of like the core of the PC.
Right.
So that's not optimal.
Right. So security, safety, speed. There's many reasons to have the operating system separated from the home gaming storage space.
Exactly. Yes.
And again, the other thing that I keep on catching, and you've probably seen this too now. We've looked at other competitors in the space, and again, it just seems like that they're. I feel like I've maybe said this in other AMAs. They're decentralizing the part that could stay centralized, and they're keeping central the part that's most important to decentralize, and that's the streaming.
Yes. That's true.
Yeah, that's really interesting indeed, because the security aspect, we say, okay, you can entirely do that. You improve the user experience, you improve the security by separating that on the dedicated disk. But then the actual streaming, what you see with other parts in the space, it happens on a centralized server, and it's very mysterious why they go for that approach. But people, they don't seem to mind. So I guess that's the.
Yeah, they'll mind when they get when they have the bill come at them and says, you've had this many people playing, and now you have to pay this much money to Amazon.
Yeah, or they consider it like a first step, right? Because it is easier to just go for a CPU-based node that just validates transactions, so to say, than doing a node entirely decentralized, where you do need like things like a custom operating system. We immediately go for the fundamentals, and then later on we may want to expand some things and having validators doing like the additional matchmakers and game servers.
Right.
But for us, that's for later on.
I think like how I look at it is I find it a bit deceptive in what they are saying, because like it's not really deep in what they're doing, and like they don't tell you about like the security considerations or risks. Like I like the approach that we have, that okay, full transparent. We don't want your data. We're going to make it harder for ourselves, but we want to make sure that our customer basically is guaranteed that it's safe.
And the other thing that I remember that you guys had told me was the driver issue, right? Because one of those first scripts you wrote was, or I don't know if it was one of the first ones you wrote, but you wrote the script that goes out and finds the latest drivers for the systems, right? So what you're saying is if it were still a container inside of Windows and this game required new drivers, you'd be forcing the gaming rig owner to update their drivers and they may not want to.
Exactly.
Yeah. But by having those on a node, having this different operating system, we can update drivers to our heart's content, and it doesn't bother the person's gaming rig that they normally use.
It's completely non-invasive to your home PC. So let's say you have a Windows, like the node will operate completely separate, and it will not invade in anything. So like no changes, nothing to your PC, which I think is very important, because nobody wants somebody else watching in their PC.
No, right. I've got things on my PC I know that I don't want people to know about. Oh.
Yeah.
I'll edit that part out.
but yeah, it's almost so even if you look, let's say, on Ethereum, like Ethereum virtual machines, why have people not developed those disks with a dedicated Ethereum virtual machine or a Solana validator on them and distributed them, right? That's also mind. I think it has to do with, okay, then aside from the blockchain knowledge, you also have to maintain an operating system, which kind of like expands the scope of your efforts. But then if you're bold and you're just diving into it, yeah.
Well, the node purchasers, the people who purchase nodes from us are going to be tech savvy because they're going to have a gaming rig. They're going to know enough about how to build a computer that they know what's a good. By the way, my son is constantly peppering me with, "Hey, I want to sell my graphics card so I can buy a bigger graphics card." Then I have to eventually talk to you guys about which card's the right one. Well, maybe we do that now. So we talk about system requirements that were not just node side but gaming rig side. Let's cover those for people.
So currently we do have some benchmarking on the node that we are currently running here. And basically what the goal is of this is to make like a calculation based on performance on many sorts of tests. And that will give us an indication. It's like, okay, how many of this kind of game can we run simultaneously on our nodes? So it's basically a calculation. And then when the node is operating for a long time in the DePIN network, we can basically see from, hey, is this consistent? Is everything good? And then we can give that an extra score, basically. But for like, if you say like I need a new PC because I want to run a node, then I already can say VRAM, most important, get a lot of VRAM. Okay. So
yeah, that's why I originally told everybody get a 3090 RTX with 24 gigs of VRAM. But if you look at the prices, if you want to get the best value for your investment, there's apparently, and I learned that this week because my brother asked me, he's like, where do I buy a node? What kind of machine do I need? Because he saw some of the videos and then he understood it. And then I did some research for him specifically, which is like, okay, on a lower budget, so to say. And then I figured out that there's apparently the 4060 Ti, which has a 16 gigs VRAM edition, right? So there is a very cheap version that has a lot of VRAM. So I recommend everybody to buy that one.
Okay.
It's like $450 or $500, and then you can run a lot of games concurrently.
450? That's it? $500?
Yeah.
Because I'm looking at these $2,300 graphics cards that he's sending me links to because he's got expensive taste.
Yeah.
So like one thing that's really important, like it's the Ti 4060 Ti, not just the 4060 Ti.
Yeah. Okay.
Important.
Well, I find them here for 379 euros.
Goodness. All right. Yeah, that's about 450.
Almost nothing.
So, and it's all NVIDIA, right? We're locked into NVIDIA for now.
Yes.
Okay.
So the AMD is actually going along quite well. and that's because of Ubuntu and basically their PPA repository. So like basically we made everything optimized for NVIDIA to start with, but it already starts to bleed over into AMD. So it's going to be the same process inside the script. It's like a different route, but like first we thought it's going to be more complex than it is. It's actually going to be way easier than we expected.
On the repository side, right? But then there's also within the game. So a part of what we do when streaming is we upscale the games. So the games are actually playing in a very low resolution. And that's why we're saying NVIDIA, because they have this upscaling, it's called DLSS. We apply that so we can have a lot of games consuming low resource, and we upscale them with the CUDA cores, which are the AI chips that allow that to happen. Now AMD doesn't have those.
No,
but they have a different system in their latest GPUs that we can make use of. But then you have to specifically enable that within the game. So we then also have to update the SDK to make that work.
Yeah, true.
And we're talking. I mean, I have had conversations with AMD already. They kind of they know that, and they told me that they're working on the next line, and it looks really, really good. So we'll see what they come up with. And then CPU wise, is there a restriction on what CPUs?
You don't
like of course there will always be some restrictions, but like the biggest bottleneck will be VRAM.
Okay. All right.
And that's because you have multiple recurring games like at the same time.
Most people might not know too that you can play. Each node can run more than a single instance. It can run up to 8 instances, maybe.
Yeah, but because all of the CPUs nowadays, they're even on your phone, they're multi-core, right? So there's automatic threading taking place. So you're working on separate cores. We do need to allocate those, but we can do that also from Docker probably or something.
So if I can tie into that, so like the node will basically have like Docker files. And like to explain it to people, it's like sort of mini operating systems, like bit by bit by bit. So you can like duplicate them and have the things. And these little Docker files, they have constraints on them based on the game. So basically that's an allocation of, hey, how much CPU, how much GPU, how much VRAM does this use? And then it isolates it. That way you don't get any interference, especially with lag if you do more games, because like it's this restricted, isolated part. I hope people at home understand this.
No, I'm good.
Well, the advantage even on using Docker is that you don't have to install the game. So normally when you install a game, you download it, it gets this installer, etc., etc. And the reason that happens is because every computer is different, right? But now, because we own the operating system, we can just very quickly do a one-on-one download of the image, and it works out of the box. So there's no need to install the game every time on the computer, right?
Oh, so wait. You're saying that the nodes you don't install the game on the nodes?
We
don't. No, we download them.
We download them. Yeah,
that's it.
Because this is a question that I think it's one of the responses we have to give to one of the groups that reach out to us is that no, it's not. Well, I imagine that takes less space then. Because he was saying 2 terabyte node is.
Oh yeah, usually because, for example, with Steam, you download the game, so you get the installer files, and then you install the game, so you need a lot more. But indeed, but still, a game can still be 120 gigs of space.
Yeah,
right. So it will get penalized the bigger the game is.
But we don't have the installer files and the game files. We just have the game files.
Just the game files. Yeah.
Just boom, launch, bam, let's go.
Awesome. All right. So, Dirk, I don't know this about you at all, but are you a gamer? Do you game?
Yes. I'm a very, very hardcore gamer. not anymore.
What's that?
Not anymore, because like I enjoyed it so much. This is my biggest time sink. But yes, I am like I was quite hardcore till recently. Basically, until like I got my daughter, because my daughter takes most of my time. And that's also. Where I want to spend my time, but before that, like I was super hardcore. Hardcore.
What was your game? What was the one that you?
World of Warcraft. And like both like the PvP aspect and also like the PVM aspect. So raiding and stuff. Also,
I don't know that I ever asked you that question either. But what was your game? Because I know that you played a lot of the Vampire the Masquerade was you got all excited about that the other day.
Yeah, I'm excited about like the most nerdiest of the nerdy game, right? So the pen and paper role playing, I like that because there's a lot of creativity involved, but also the strategy games that Paradox delivers. So that combination, so anything that Paradox basically publishes, I'm a fan of, and I only play that. So Hearts of Iron, Crusader Kings, Europa Universalis. Like economical micromanagement, and then building up states from scratch, and then warfare. That's really.
You also like the Total War series? You enjoy it?
Yeah, for me the Total War, I don't like as much because then every time I have to go into the battle, and I'm like, auto resolve, and then if you auto resolve anything, then you can better just play Europa Universalis or Crusader Kings, right? So
none of this surprises me about you. That micromanaging games is what you love. I can't even imagine.
And then I also like Baldur's Gate 3, so I started playing that again because it's how do you build your config to be optimized for the game, and then you do hardcore mode or honored mode and try to defeat the best boss in the game.
I think that's that's the key of like trying to optimize, be better, no matter what the game. Like with World of Warcraft, you can also sim like the damage per second you can do. Like I would spend like hours, days, just minimizing, optimizing, and get like maybe 100 extra damage, and then map out the entire fight. So like every position was on the map. Yeah, it's like fully dedicated.
So what does it say about me? Because I played a lot of the Sims, right? Which I also not early Sims, right? So not the later ones. But I would set up a household. Give this person a job, that person a job, and then I would go to work and I would leave it run for the whole day to come home and find my sim kind of rocking in the corner in a puddle of their own pee and just not unable to, all the kids have been taken away. Like to me, it's sadistic fun. Like that. What does that say about me? I probably need to get some.
Let's put it like this: you probably just like the designing of houses in Sims, right?
Well, I like the drama of it all.
You like to see people go through midlife crises.
That was you know what? It was between my two marriages, so I was a divorced guy at the time. That probably played into it a little bit. Sure. All right, where should we take this? What else have we not covered, node-wise or technology-wise?
Now, what I'm interested in, Jeff, did you use cheat codes for The Sims?
No,
too difficult.
I'm not a cheat code kind of guy. I'm trying to think. When I played Resident Evil 4, I went and got the book, right? So I could. So there were places I couldn't get past. I would go to the book and just to get past them. But I didn't try to read ahead or spoil it for me. I prefer to have it happen in the moment. If I die, I die, and I'll come back again. So no, not a lot of cheat codes.
Yeah.
Oh, you know what? The conversation did kind of make me think a little bit. We had one person react to when we presented what we're building to say, who's going to play AAA games inside of Telegram or on their mobile phone? And again, I think his definition, I think two things, right? Because he's like, I've got a PlayStation at home and I play with my daughter on my PlayStation. I'm like, all right, well, a couple things you're not recognizing. First, not everyone's got a PlayStation. Not everyone's got a living room, to be playing on a big screen TV. So a lot of people have phones, and to be able to play these high-end games on phones is probably going to be very inviting to them. And then secondly, I think his definition of AAA games also didn't match up with what we're saying. What we're saying is anything that's built inside of Unreal can be displayed on our network. So yes, it may be those 60-hour game experiences that have a long story, but also could just be a really good MMO or RPG game that's just rendered very nicely.
Like to that question, like specifically, it's kind of difficult to bring your gaming rig on the train.
Yeah, right.
And then enjoy a AAA game in the train. Like I think that's just the challenge. Better just to grab your mobile phone and like press a link, or go to the website of your favorite game studio and just play.
Yeah, it's the instant access part, right? So even like with a AAA game like Hogwarts Legacy, that's also built in Unreal Engine. You have to install it 100 gigs, you have to play it, you have to set up the game. That takes all of these steps. But when you can get that quality of immersion with an instant press on any device, and even on the desktop, right? So any device, that opens up a whole new area of possibility, because now the developer doesn't have to think about how can I build a game that lasts for 100 hours or 200 hours when you can craft an experience during a weekend, publish it, and hundreds of thousands of people will interact with the game, and maybe that game is 5 minutes or it's a 10-minute experience, right? So it doesn't necessarily have to be a game. It can also be some real estate product or a car configurator, or like an immersive AI character that you can fully customize and play games with, right? So
yeah, there's a lot of experiences we talked about. We had the one group that we're still speaking with who wanted to do like a tutorial for doing soccer moves. And we could motion capture a guy doing a soccer move, but then on the website, people could play it back, forward, or reverse. They can move the camera around and see from many different angles. If you're wondering how they pulled that one off, these are like trick moves and things like that. So if it, in a video, I can watch a video of someone doing it, but I can't pick which angle I'm seeing it from, and I can't slow it down. I can't run it in reverse, right? All those things are available when you pump into Unreal and give the viewer some level of controls. But it's way more than games is what we're talking about, I guess.
So for sure. Yeah, I think games is like the best example that we are like going games, because like the rest is slightly, it's not that hard. For example, like streaming something, yes, like that doesn't require like a specific control set. It's just press play and it plays. Still nice that you can do it instantly, but I think like for gaming, it's actually like really revolutionary.
Yeah. Well, when we talk about it to people, right, the idea that if I'm playing a game that I'm really enjoying and I want Dirk to join me in the game, instead of me sending him the link to Steam and he has to download it and install it, and then 3 hours later he and I can play together, I'm sending him a link to a URL, or I'm sending him a Telegram message, and we're immediately playing together.
Yes, exactly. So that is what we develop now, right? So we have a Telegram game that's streaming AAA quality content. And there is also this almost like multiplayer aspect to it. So the scores get published immediately in the group. Right. So there is this.
And Andy
thing.
So bad to have the high score slot. He's bound to determine to try to reach that high score slot.
So I think I have the high score and the zombie shooter, the Martian shooter.
I thought I had it still.
Like there's a couple of them, but like I figured a way out, because that's how I am. So apparently they drop like a ×4 sometimes.
Yes.
So basically I would just move around, stack them all up, shoot one zombie by one zombie until the ×4 comes up, and then switch to the other gun, blast them all, get max points.
Yeah. Maybe also good to highlight, because now it sounds it's our game, but it's not our game, right? So the game is developed by a studio. They build all of the assets of the mechanics. We help them plugging in basically the SDK so it would work on mobile. So that a little bit of support there.
Right.
But other than that, they independently published it. It's on their website. They also did that integration. It's on. It's now on Telegram. Unfortunately, the network still has to be rolled out.
Yeah.
Right. But after that, we can just publish so many different games and experience on the network. Yeah, it's.
But maybe this is also a good way to tie in, because I saw the question from JJ.
Yeah.
About the plugins. So I think maybe you can explain.
Yeah. What is the question?
I'll bring the questions up so we can look at them together. Well, I think we've already touched on one, but Jay, the first question he asked is, what are some examples of non-gaming experience that can be streamed on YOM? Which use cases besides gaming are you most bullish about?
We all know what the internet was made for.
Here, but no.
Yeah, but I suppose you could do that in Unreal, couldn't you?
Of course, it would revolutionize the space.
Who's gonna motion capture that? Is I guess my question.
Well, no need to motion capture it. You have AI then. So.
All right.
Because
what are you more bullish about?
I'm more like, I think like a lot of people might notice, some people not notice, but I'm really excited what Straightfire is doing. Like, it's one of our partners, and basically they I recommend everyone to check it out. That's something I'm bullish about, especially because we're also partner with them. I think what they are doing, that ties perfectly with us.
You're talking about the transmedia play.
Yeah.
Yes, like it's
for people who don't know, what they're doing is they're building the assets once, building the assets in Unreal, and then making both a game and an animated series, and I think comic books too. I said both of those over 3. all using the same assets. They don't have to build the assets once, but they can use it several different media plays. So call it transmedia. And yeah, it will be really, really cool.
So, super
now I'm still hot on the whole idea of social spaces being in 3D. But I know that Jorrit doesn't share my enthusiasm with it. But the idea of instead of having a Facebook page, having a Facebook apartment, right? So
but
I have my.
That's also why I don't like The Sims, right? I like playing it. So there's a multiplayer mod for The Sims with my wife. But other than that, it's no.
Unfortunately, no. I don't share it with you, Jeff. I don't
Well, when I invite you over to play poker and you force you to listen to my music inside of MySpace, or do there are aspects I think about that are going to be cool.
So, like, if you do that to me, you invite me to that. Like, I want to come to your house and play poker and be in your space. But like, please don't.
And otherwise, fly out to South Carolina. Good luck.
I like that.
True, but you can also just play World of Warcraft, or you go play Call of Duty, right? And these are better experiences to play virtually than poker, right? So because with poker you need the subliminal messaging also. I mean,
you're a hardcore poker player.
What?
You're looking for tells. I didn't realize you were a hardcore poker player. Maybe I don't play poker with you.
So, like when we play poker, I have like this device next to me that records the screen. It checks out my like how much chance I have to win. Like, totally fair.
All right, let's get into one of Jay's other questions. He said, "How will the 3 layers that compute GPU work together?" So we talked about the 3 different layers and how that middle layer supports the areas where we haven't quite sold enough nodes or we have a spike in traffic. So he's asking that question. I thought we had talked about it before, but I guess the question became like, how efficient is it in terms of latency and price?
So like, I personally, like if we talk about 3 layers, I don't feel personally that it is 3 layers, but 2.
Okay.
And to give some context to that, so either you're on the non-YOM network, or you get instantly redirected to, for example, AWS or IONet. So like it's 2-layered. It's not, in my opinion, it's not 3-layered.
Okay.
Like in that question is like, I think you said like, is there GPU sharing? No, that's not the case. There will not be GPU sharing. Basically, every node will have like a minimum what it needs to be able to handle, and that will get put into our orchestrator. And that orchestrator will decide, okay, this is qualified to actually be used. So like there's not an instance that we share GPU power. That's not there. So that makes it, in my opinion, a 2-layer. So there's no interconnection between, like, for example, our node cannot handle it and then AWS will join in. Like that does not happen.
No, but you can still, if we were playing a multiplayer game and you were playing off of one of the 2nd-layer providers and I'm playing off a node, we could still play against each other. It's all the same network.
100%. Yeah.
And then cost-wise, it's more expensive. This is why we'll always defer to an individual node when we have the opportunity to do so. It's just if we can't find one or they're all full, or there's no node close enough by that hits our latency benchmarks, then we have to go into that 2nd-layer solution.
Exactly, yes.
And that's actually, so we put on the website it's a 10x difference, but in actuality it's like a 30x difference, right? Because not only do you pay for the machines, you also pay for the bandwidth and a lot of overhead resources as well. So if you add all of these things together, and then it's like a 30x difference.
Right. So which is why the rewards for the nodes can be so hefty, right? Because we're saving so much by not using Amazon.
I think it's like a good way to, like, because it needs to be rolled out. So like for the starting bit, like I think it's necessary, but in the end, like I think our network will be there and like it will not go over capacity. I fully believe that.
Yeah, we'll get
we're building also a queuing system, right? So we put people like in a waiting queue if we do run out of AWS capacity as well.
Yeah.
Right. Because for the studios and the games, we give them the ability to use that 2nd layer. Because if they use that 2nd layer, they of course have to pay for the additional compute that we're using. And some studios, they're tight on budgets, so they may not want to do that, right? So then in that case, people will arrive in the queuing system.
Right. Next question he asked was the idea that, we did say that games have to install our SDK, and any kind of plugins they use need to be Linux compatible, right? Which we think is a majority of them anyways. But he was asking, what happens with those companies who have either a lot of plugins and they haven't done the work to make them Linux compatible? Does that kind of hurt our chances of getting those games on our network, or what's the effect there?
Yeah, that's a very good question, and that's also correct. So we've, in most cases, that transition wasn't that hard with the studios that we talked to, but it could be indeed because what we're in fact doing. So the big change is not necessarily Linux. We're using Vulkan drivers rather than DirectX drivers.
Okay.
Right? But nowadays, Vulkan and DirectX, they're almost interchangeable to each other. So we do require the games to use Vulkan. The moment they use Vulkan, they're compatible with Linux.
Okay.
Right? So there's a little bit of shift there. And it does imply that some plugins need updating, but usually it's just the header files. So it's just, so rather than needing to update the entire plugin, you only have to say it supports Vulkan drivers, or it supports Linux, right? So it's a very tiny change.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Well, I mean, it's also the reason why if there are games out there game studios who are thinking about getting on the network, you talk to us early, right? So we can prepare you. You can put it as part of your schedule. But honestly, the change, for JJ's sense of comfort, it's not really that big a change, even though it might sound like it's a lot.
It used to be a very big issue, right? Because 10 years ago, or 5 years ago even, there was no native Vulkan support, and so therefore Linux support on Unreal Engine was dwindling, so to say. But right now it's almost equivalent. So times are changing.
Yes, and you can also see that with like how many studios are switching to Unreal at the moment.
Yeah,
it's Unreal. Yeah, it's massive. Like
the last question, speaking of Unreal, this is he's asking if Epic, they own the Unreal Engine. Isn't our technology a huge interest to them, and shouldn't we be partnered up with them? And we agree. Yeah. And we are talking to a division, but it's a big company. To get through to the right people takes some time, and we're working our way through their chain. The people we're speaking to are interested in that transmedia aspect of things, because Unreal Engine is great for animators, right? It's great for movie production and those kinds of things. You've seen a couple of different TV series being built just inside of Unreal. So we're using that avenue because we have access that way. But yeah, we'll get their attention, I'm sure, at a certain point, and they're going to want to come on board.
I also think because DePIN in general is not really like a super familiar term at the moment. Yeah. And what usually happens with big companies, like the adjusting to it, that takes some time.
Yeah.
I think how bigger the corporation, how longer it takes before it's up the chain of command until somebody gets a decision.
Yeah, and it's in the States too, where all kinds of Web3 restrictions are being put in place by a government that doesn't quite understand it still. But we'd expect a change in that to happen probably in the next year.
Yeah, and I do know that Epic Games is actually working with Web3 companies, right? So it shouldn't be the Web3 aspect. So, for example, Star Atlas is published in the Epic Games Store. They're working together also with the people from Merit Circle to blow things. So it's just so they would be open to it, but indeed the DePIN part, because that's a new concept, I think they're entirely oblivious to what that means for them.
So I've been to their campus. I've been through their building. Epic it's a massive. It's a pretty cool place to be. They've got
it's quite epic.
Google setup. Yeah, it is quite epic. I actually had Tim Sweeney walk by me the one time. He's just walking down the hallway with like 2 or 3 people, and I was walking the other direction. I'm like, hey, it was Tim Sweeney. Yeah. Check it out. But my second favorite Tim Sweeney. I actually worked with a different Tim Sweeney, who was also awesome. All right. So, last question for you, Dirk. Web3, blockchain, crypto. On a person, don't give me your holdings, but do you buy and sell? Are you invested in the blockchain space?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Like we had the infamous guest last week.
Yes.
And I'm also part of that cult. I'm also a member of Chateau Crypto.
Okay.
So yes, I do invest. I have my entire blue chip portfolio, and I actively trade as well. Yeah.
Has your heart been broken already, like the rest of them?
No, like
Makes your heart.
no, it's not broken.
It's actually destroyed, right?
Not yet.
That's.
Robert always says that I don't have a heart, so it's kind of
It's hard to break a heart when you don't have one. I get it.
yeah. So like all my sorrows and pain will get sucked in that black hole and like it
disappears.
It's gone. Never again.
No.
No, like, but I cannot complain because like it's a good time to be in crypto. Like I made so much money already with it, so cannot complain.
Yeah, very good.
No big losses yet. So
I'm heavy into the meme coins, are you?
no, fuck meme coins. I don't know fuck meme coins.
Oh yeah.
Like the frustrating thing with meme coins is like I do like some research into like projects where I want to invest, and only if like that passes like all the checks, and that's good. And then you see like a meme coin that's going like times 1,000. I'm like, why? There was this coin called Habibi that was like going like, and I was like, what? Why?
Habibi is my mom's dog's name.
Habibi, yeah.
Habibi, it means like precious or something like that in Arabic.
It means like sweetheart, right? Something.
Sweetheart, something like that. Yeah, sweetheart. Yeah. All right, we've been going at 50 minutes. That's pretty good. Anything I didn't cover that I should about the nodes, or
like maybe you want to show your background.
Oh yeah. So all right. So where we are is
it's very difficult to read.
So the major partner secured. So the orchestrator and the DePIN public access is the next, and we're kind of almost doing that a little bit, right? Because the game that MBR made is available on their website, but we don't really talk about it much because there's only a single node running, right? So if people storm into it, they're gonna clog it up and they'll have to wait to get onto it. And we are using it for investment purposes and reaching out to marketers. But then next year, the marketing relaunch and getting that same alpha test out to a larger audience, making it available for everybody, and getting those node sales.
Yeah, maybe it's also good to announce to talk about there is an aggregator. There's going to be, so we can't name it yet, but there are plans for a company to build an aggregator on top of YOM, right? So then all of our content, so rather than us needing to publish the content somewhere, it will automatically get published on that aggregator.
Right. Think of it as it's almost the opposite of what YouTube does. YouTube puts it all on one central server and then gives you the link to embed in your website. We're doing it the other way around. We give you the stream to embed on your website, and then we'll search out and find all the streams out there and put them into the aggregator. Is that fair to say? Yeah. All right, and you're right, but that's coming from another company. We'll announce who that is as soon as that's all signed and sealed.
Yeah.
I'm sure the last part is people are like, well, how do I get a node? If I'm really interested, now that we've talked them into how powerful it is and the returns and all that, right? We have the sign up page on the website, the node mint page, and then our timetable hasn't really changed. And we expect that we'll get the licenses out in the beginning of Q1 and get the hardware out sometime in Q2. That's still our plan. Yeah, changes will let everybody know. So
yeah, we cannot reveal any names yet, but we're also going to build some white label versions of the nodes with some IDO platforms that we cannot name yet, but they will be big. Yeah.
We also can't yet name the manufacturer and the distributors, but those are big names that we're talking to as well.
Yeah.
So maybe also something like I saw a comment in the chat that the node was only 5% finished. I just want to elaborate on that. That's not the case. I think we will have like the end of this year, we will have the first like node that is really ready for the test network already. So it's quite close. It's not 5%. It's really further along.
Yeah, but I know that JJ, what he said was, okay, yeah, you have an MVP ready, but he said, okay, it's 5% of the mass adoption full product, but still, it's not 5%,
no,
right? You don't need, so an MVP means a minimum viable product. It means a product that is viable now for potential market adoption, right? So the end product, of course, you have 5%, because the end product of Google, so Google went viral, but it was not the end product, right?
No.
So yeah, it's Yeah, but then it's a useless comment, right? So it's that's how you view it.
No, like, but like, I just wanted to reiterate, is like we are quite far along, and like I think at the end of the year we can like showcase some really cool things, and like I expect it to go quite good, quite fast, quite well.
Yeah, maybe one more thing. What we because we've shared some videos of the Alpha network being live and the first node being up, but of course, what people want is just like a node explorer kind of setup where they can see, okay, how many sessions are validated, how many machines are connected to the network. So that is also something that we should develop next to it, if we have time.
So a lot you can do it.
Because otherwise they won't believe it, right? So we say, okay, the Alpha network is live, and then they play again. And it's like, show me that's actually running on the node. It's like, how do we show that to you, right? Do we like because the entire node is running headless? That's the point.
Right. It's. I think that's kind of an easy thing to set a fake version up too, to show.
Yeah, I mean that's what a lot of. I don't want to name any companies, but that's what a lot of competitors do, right? They claim their DePIN, but then they show an AWS stream. It's like, yeah, we did that with BeamUp, like a prior company years ago when we were still a studio. So there's no feet in that. So
right. But again, it's the space is just filled with a lot of perception and hype, and not a lot of truth.
And that's people want evidence, they want proof, and that's good. These are good questions. These are valid questions. You want to see, because everybody could make a video, right? So we have to build that node explorer next to it, so you can see that there are nodes that are connected. So you can see your own node that has a unique address to it, right?
I like to think that we benefit from the market skepticism because we're actually building for real, right? So that skepticism helps us out. They just want people to have it everywhere.
Yeah, I think with Breakpoint, that was like the closest thing you could get to a good showcase. It's basically like you see like the terminal doing its thing, or you can play it on your phone.
Yeah.
That's like more evidence we cannot give you. Yeah, and the other bit is like on
but then people are like, okay, but it's local within Singapore, right? So it's like,
we haven't told nodes to Singapore yet.
You can
I see that Jay is typing, so it's probably
you can always comment. You can always fake anything. That's internet, right? But like.
Where's the marketing for the mobile Saga 2 release? The Solana phone. That's interesting. That's interesting. We could open up that discussion. I haven't really considered that. How about a small game for Saga 2? That's also interesting.
Yeah.
But the thing is, like the games they don't, of course, depend on the
device, right? It's a web browser. So any game that we've done so far should work on the Saga 2.
Yeah, but I could imagine maybe that Saga 2 contains a node, right? So it has an access key, an NFT, and you can claim that. So you have your Saga phone and you also have a node. That would be pretty cool. But then again, nothing is planned. All ideas.
We have too many great ideas and a limited time. And of course, Robert wants to know when moon. Robert, the chart did exactly what I said it was going to do last week, didn't it? And you're the one who's telling us we're going to hit 80,000 in 20 days, or now we're at 13 days, Robert?
Yeah, I believe that's true. 100%. Not financial advice, by the way, but
right. Not financial advice.
Like with if you grab a logarithmic chart, then like the peak of Bitcoin should be at 1 November. Theoretically.
Yes.
Theoretically, yes.
I haven't done that. I haven't done a lot of
That's 1 week from now.
So. I know. But like I don't have a glass orb, so I cannot see the future, but like I believe it.
Yeah. Faith. All right, guys. It's been about an hour. We don't want to go too much past that. So been awesome. Dirk, we're gonna do this again. Look, Jay put his
yeah, like like we also gonna conquer the moon for sure.
Yeah.
All right. We'll do it again next week. We'll have another guest. I think I have somebody lined up next week from outside the studio. So I'll confirm that, and then we'll post the details. And I'll do some short version of this. All right, Dirk. Been awesome. Thanks, Jorrit.
YOM.